jingle dingle. Honor.
Nice.
Whoa, welcome to my diner. Would you like food? Or perhaps an intergalactic adventure?
I would love an intergalactic adventure, Sam.
Well, great, because we're serving those up hot and fresh here at Midnight Burger, the subject of today's podcast cast.
Welcome to Podcast Cast.
Welcome to Podcast Cast, a podcast where we review podcasts. I'm Sam.
And I'm Honor.
And today, we're talking about
Midnight Burger.
Midnight Burger, a burger late into the evening, much too late to have a burger. You're going to get acid reflux if you eat a burger that late. But
Not
that's
very good for you.
I think it's fine.
I agree with you, but you said it first, so
Oh yeah,
kind of weird of you to backtrack.
That's true. I kind of forget that you're supposed to yes and.
Yeah.
I realize this while we record this podcast. I'm always ready to say no. No matter what's happening, I'm locked and loaded when someone says something to say, no, I don't think that's correct.
You also love to set a thing up and then
That's so true.
someone else will keep going and then you shut it down.
It's also not that I don't want them to do the thing I set up. I do.
No,
but my natural instinct is just to
you
say
just
no.
do that.
No.
And it's awesome.
I was an awesome kid to play in the sandbox with.
I bet.
No, that's not how it works. Today we're excited to talk about Midnight Burger. Midnight Burger is a
podcast.
It's a podcast. Roll credits. We're done here.
Yeah.
Midnight Burger is a fiction podcast
Mm-hmm.
by the Fable and Folly Network. I know that only because it's said every 15 minutes. That's not quite true, but it feels like
Not
it.
quite. It's at the beginning and end, which feels regular for a podcast.
Okay, all right, whatever. Midnight Burger is a fiction podcast that feels to me very reminiscent of the old like radio dramas.
Yeah.
It follows a cast of characters at this place called Midnight Burger, a diner, but it's no normal diner.
No.
Midnight Burger every day appears at some place different in the multiverse and across time. So it's like a funny, wacky adventure podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's as if did you watch The Bear, the TV show?
No.
It was about I didn't either. I think it's about food in restaurants. So I'm imagining that if it's
Oh, I think you're right.
yeah, I'm imagining that Midnight Burger is a cross between like The Bear and
Yeah.
what's it called?
What's it called?
What's it called? There's another TV show, Sliders.
I thought they made up that fake show for this
I think-
podcast. Is it real?
Let's boop boop. Checking if Sliders is real.
Little machine interlude.
Hey, Anna, can you play the Little Machine song? Can you just edit it in right now?
Yeah, for sure. That's it. That's the whole song.
Honor, I'm so glad that you played the instrumental version so people could get used to it. Now, I really like the lyrics of that song, so if you could just also put that version in, that would be great.
Uh-huh. Little machine.
Perfect. So
You said it
that's
is.
that's a whack logo. You see that?
That is bizarre, yeah.
It's a whack
Why'd they do
logo.
the E like that?
Why you gotta do that to my boy E?
Why you gonna do that to my boy E?
So Midnight Burger is essentially an episodic adventure podcast
Mm-hmm.
with a funny little setting.
Yeah.
Honor, I forced you to listen to this one.
Mm-hmm.
I held you at Burger Point and I said,
Yeah.
you can't have any food, no burger, until you listen to the entirety of Midnight Burger. And you still haven't. You haven't listened to all 4 seasons.
I've listened to
You're
a
gaunt.
considerable about.
I've not let you eat.
Well,
You're frail.
not that you know of.
I haven't eaten that you know of is
That
a weird
eaten
phrase.
that you know of.
What before we jump into it, what do you think? What did you think of it? You listened to the first season, is that right?
Yes, I listened to the first season, 10 episodes, which is a little less than 10 hours.
Yeah. They're all about, in the first season at least, they're all about 40 minutes or so.
There's like the first couple are 30 minutes and then they jump to like 55-minute mark.
Yes. And they do, so there are 3 seasons to Midnight Burger,
Mm-hmm.
and they've just started the 4th. And the episodes get progressively longer.
Awesome.
Yeah. Which is good news if you like this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do, and I think I'll probably listen to the rest of it, which I think is the best metric for is it good or not? Will I finish it? Yeah, I think it's fun. I think, you go into a podcast and your buddy holds you at Burger Point to tell you to listen to it. And this buddy on the other side of a burger might go, you know how the first seasons of things, sometimes you can really tell it's the first season?
Yeah.
You said that, and I was like, I'm sure it'll be fine. And I went in and was like, correct, in that it was like, yeah, there's like some things, but it was like not as bad as a lot of first seasons of things.
It's true. I think it's definitely true that the first season of Midnight Burger is not, to me, the strongest.
Yeah.
Having said that, though, it's also hard in like a story-based podcast like this. It's episodic, but it's, it's not really one where you can skip around very easily, or that you could, but it would feel strange.
Yeah. There is an overarching plot.
But it's hard to ask somebody to listen to like the first season of a podcast because like the second or third season is really good.
Yeah.
Because this is close to 10 hours. And I feel like it's way easier to have somebody be like, oh, you can watch a Netflix show. First season isn't very good.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can turn on like a TV, like a show.
Yeah.
You just have it go and you don't really have to like, you don't have to care, right?
Uh-huh.
A podcast, you can do that. But it really does be like, what? They're talking about this thing. What? Because you have no like visual grounding for what's going on or what's changing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like pay attention to what's being said, and it's really strange especially in this podcast, if you haven't kept up.
Here's the thing that will maybe blow your mind.
My mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that I kind of did that with a lot of the episodes where it's like, you put it on while you do another thing, which I've come to learn is apparently like a controversial take I have on podcasts, where I'm like, yeah, I love to have a podcast on while I'm doing another thing. And other people are like, I can't do anything else while I listen to a podcast. I need to have 100% of my attention on the podcast. And I'm like, no, I was sitting there like,
yeah. Time out. Flag on the play. You've said so much insane stuff in the past like 30 seconds. It is not controversial to say you're doing something else while you're listening to a podcast.
That's what I thought. And then everyone I say that to.
Who are you talking to?
I don't know.
Giant ears? Podcasts are made so that you do something else.
Yeah.
If you sit in a room and listen to a podcast with your hands in your lap, that's insane. This is not controversial. Listeners, if you have a different opinion, don't email in. You're wrong.
Don't tell us.
Or do, and we'll explain to you further why you're incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Podcasts are made to do something else. But I also think it's to reference our last guest, the one who shall not be named.
Yeah.
Carly. Did we peak?
Huh? Not peak, but you got real loud.
Perfect. We should get that on a t-shirt. Did we peak?
Did we peak?
To reference our last guest, Carly said that she would listen to podcasts while like doing work, like homework, like writing stuff.
Yeah.
That is insane.
I was doing that.
You are insane. You need help. This is
I was writing spell descriptions.
That is the goofiest. That is the worst thing you've ever said to me. That is you.
I was designing
You're a
an
goofwad. You're a wad of
RPG.
silliness.
Yeah, isn't it great?
It's wonderful. It's terrible. I'm conflicted.
Nice.
Yeah, so crazy to not do something else. Crazy to do something else that requires you to word.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said that you half listened to this podcast. Were you not confused? Were you not like, what?
No. And that was the awesome part. Is that, which it's also like, I'm a person who's gotten good at like listening to a podcast while I do other tasks that might also require some brain power, but
you can't listen to a
multitask.
podcast. You have to tune out the podcast. I
I
fundamentally.
mean a little bit, but
Yeah.
for the most part, no. I was still catching it.
I don't. This is crazy.
There
Well-
would occasionally be moments, but it was also, that was part of the like first season like iffiness, is sometimes there were points where it was like, I'm just going to put this on while I do something else because like it's a little longer than it needs to be.
The podcast?
Or like just some of the episodes in particular, I felt like.
Yeah.
When it's like the middle of the season and they're like not quite ready to get to like end of season stuff, but they're like past the exposition. And it's like, if you don't do that well.
Let's get
drags.
into it. Let's get into it because
Let's
those
get
are some of
into
my
it.
favorite seasons or some of my
Interesting.
favorite episodes. Okay.
That's intriguing to me.
We're going to go through at least the first season episode by episode.
Yeah.
And then second season we'll kind of do something similar. Season 3. So I've listened to season 2 and 3. Season 4
Mhm.
episode 1's just come out. I have not listened to it. Maybe it's the best. Maybe just skip right there.
Schrodinger's episode. We don't know.
Season 1 episode 1 is called the transdimensional Haboob.
Yep.
Which is a really, they really stuck themselves on the silly side of the fence post on
Yeah.
that one. You know
They
what
were
I mean?
like, silly space adventure. That better be what you're here for.
Yeah, exactly. Was that? I don't know if that's a great title.
Yeah.
Like, especially some of them are later on, like more, I don't know, more like new beginnings or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not quite true. So, episode 1, we
Mhm.
are introduced to our characters.
Our characters.
First, we meet Gloria, who walks into a diner like an hour outside of Phoenix, applying
Mhm.
for a job. She meets Casper, the guy that works there? Question mark. He's
very weird about it.
He's super weird about it. Casper's like, "Why are you here?" She's like, "I'm here for a job." He seems very confused.
Mm.
They sit down for an interview, or he says, "Sit down over there for an interview." A customer in the diner comes up to Gloria. Her name is Ava, and I think Ava basically just goes, "Can I have a cigarette?"
Yep.
Thanks, brah, and that's about it.
Yep. And I think she's like, that's my booth over there. Like, she's renting it. And, like, don't step on my lawn, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Gloria and Casper then, they sit down and they have this conversation. Casper conducts this interview very poorly in like a very strange manner.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that Gloria's like, "Have you ever done this before?" And he's like, "No, I have not."
No.
It's very confusing. We find that Gloria is
Yeah, you look scared.
was a restaurant owner.
Are you scared of restaurant owners?
Right.
I just need everyone to know Sam looked at me with, like, the widest eyes
I was very
ever.
confused. Gloria owned a taco restaurant. That was her baby.
Mhm.
And then, since this podcast came out in 2021,
Yup.
talks about the pandemic, which, honestly, whenever anyone talked about the pandemic while the pandemic was happening, I wanted to die. I was like, don't remind me that this thing happened.
Yeah.
While at this point, I'm like, especially as the season goes on, like seasons go on,
Mm-hmm.
I'm more fine with it.
Yeah.
She'll
It's kind of whatever.
Yes.
Because they also don't stick around for long.
The pandemics?
No, them.
The characters?
The characters.
Oh, yeah.
It becomes irrelevant.
They get
quickly.
out of COVID.
Yeah.
Jerkwads.
Yep.
Yeah, Gloria owned a taco shop that got shut down because of the pandemic and is applying for any job.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she's like way more qualified than she needs to be for this like waitress position that she found an ad for on Craigslist.
Yeah.
She applies here anyway. She's like, this is so weird. I'm getting out of here, but you're going to offer me this position and then I'm going to turn it down because you guys are bad at this.
Yeah.
At this point, so we've got some hints that the diner is weird.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, we see across the horizon like a huge dust storm as Gloria's about to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And Casper's like, oh no, this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Something's after us. Ava's like, oh, this is real bad. And Gloria's like, what is happening? And then they just kind of hunker inside the diner as they're getting engulfed by this sandstorm. There's a really great moment where like Ava goes out to the front parking lot, tells Casper to go out to like the back door, throws a rock from the front parking lot to the back door, hits Casper in the head.
Yeah.
She's like, we're in a pocket dimension. And the whole time Gloria's like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah. I feel like it's important to point out that you were like, oh, Casper and Ava are like, this is bad. Which, yes, they say, but they're like way too nonchalant and like normal about it. They're like,
man.
oh, yeah, the storm is about to engulf us. Of course. And that's the part where Gloria's like, huh?
What?
Something's wrong.
Right.
What?
Because it's
is
like
happening?
It's like a huge dust storm that like encompasses like the whole horizon.
Yeah.
Which is like, this is really weird. Then out of this dust storm appears Leif, who is the cook of the Midnight Burger, and they're like, Leif, we missed you. And Gloria's like, what is happening? And Leif's like, I've got us in a pocket dimension. We're hiding from a transdimensional haboob.
There's the title. It's a lot of these episodes are kind of like that, which is just like, it's like, why is it called this?
Yeah, they're not helpful titles.
No.
A transdimensional haboob, as I have written down in my notes, listener, I have notes this time, is a nebulous-sized super being that Leif beat at a game of cards and then made really mad.
Yeah.
So they're hiding from this transdimensional haboob. I forget what it like, if they see it or what it looks like.
I don't know if they do. It's very vague.
Oh, I think it is the dust storm? ?
Oh, maybe.
I forget. But so Leif has put them in this pocket dimension to hide from it. And then Leif's like, well, one of Leif, Casper, or Ava is like, we got to go back in time to hide from this transdimensional haboob.
Yeah. I think Ava maybe proposes it, and then Leif is the one who's like, oh yeah, easy. Let me do that real quick.
Right.
Another step of Gloria being like, I'm going to have a breakdown.
Yes. So then they do that. They go back in time, like they stay in Arizona, and they just like zoom back in time to like the like prehistoric, pre-dinosaur age to a time where there's just big mushrooms.
Yeah.
So this is where I want to point out. We've said that Gloria is like, what is happening? That I wrote my other note for this episode is, we'll tell you later, is said a lot in this episode.
Yep.
Gloria's constantly go, what?
Yeah.
And then the other ones are like, we'll talk about it later.
Don't worry about it. Not right now.
It is almost cliche how much it happens.
Yeah.
There's kind of there's a lot of like, especially in the interview part, there's a lot of stilted dialogue where there's like, what is like, you're so weird. And Casper's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? I don't know.
Yeah.
And these are all good voice actors. Like, they do a good job.
Yeah, they're great voice actors.
But this first episode is awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, which it's like partially that's the tone of it, because it's not only like a, awkward situation in the way that, beginning adventure sci-fi, it always is. But also like none of these characters are very socially adept.
Yeah, that is true. That is accurate.
So it's not like the worst thing, I feel like. It's always way worse when it's like a set of characters in a story where they're trying to go for like hyper competence and real suave, like cool energy, and then it's real awkward. But it's like, it's not the worst here.
Yes. Yeah. That is pretty, like, it doesn't feel inaccurate, but it's still frequently
it's still noticeable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gloria is like the most like socially competent one.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense when she's, you know, the only one who's talking like a normal person. And it makes sense that, you know, for this episode she's freaking out because, you know, she's going back in time.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What's a haboob?" And they're like, whatever.
Yeah.
But it also does happen. That was the somebody else I told to listen to this podcast. They said to me, they're like, I tried to listen to the first episode and they just kept saying what. They also say, excuse me, Honor, what the jingle dingle? A lot.
They do.
Throughout this entire podcast.
Yeah.
They say it from every season. They go, what? The jingle dingle?
Yeah.
It happens.
Honestly, it's pretty awesome. I enjoy how, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, percussive it is every time they curse.
Yes.
From just like a voice acting standpoint, I was like, this is fun.
It does sometimes feel like this was the first project that the writer got to say big boy words on.
Yeah, for sure. Especially real early.
Yes. It's like they use the swearing to good effect. I agree.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, it does just feel noticeable. Like when they say that. We'll get to later on in the seasons. Instead of saying a bad word, they say, "Aw, snails," and I love it.
I do love snails.
It's so good.
It's awesome.
Every time they say it, I go, yippee.
Yippee. I do love when, especially sci-fi, because it's always sci-fi, when they just like pick a word and it's like, this is a swear word now. It's pretty great.
It is very good. So they go back in time. And it was like, hey, Gloria, come outside with me. And they go outside in this big tall mushroom land. And Ava's like, it tells her all about this like time in history and like what it's about, and then kind of explains what the diner is, and then is like, you should join us. I think you should stay.
Yeah. And
Gloria's like, okay, I will.
Yeah.
We learn that like Gloria doesn't have any like family connections. She was an only child and both of her parents are passed away. She doesn't have any significant other. So she's like, yeah, I think this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. And
that's the end of the episode.
End of the episode.
It's a fine first step.
It's fine. It is like, once you get past it, it feels way better in the second episode because they're past the point of like, I feel like in the awkward like dialogue we talked about, the most awkward thing is the fact that Gloria keeps being like, you are weird, in like too pointed a way. I felt like, but once she's like just kind of there with it, then it feels way better.
Yeah, like that she's like, everything is weird.
Yeah.
Because
once there's a little bit of acceptance.
Right. Because we know that this, as listeners, that this is going to be a crazy, kooky adventure podcast.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that Gloria is not up to date with that, but it is like, okay.
Yeah.
We're ready for her to get over it.
Get there.
And they write it like a reasonable person would not be adjusted to this. Honor, I forgot.
What?
I forgot, Honor. My favorite characters.
Your favorite characters? They might also be my favorite characters.
So good. I forgot Effie and Zebulon Mucklewain.
I love Zebby and I just combined their names.
Zeffie? Ship name?
Name?
My gosh.
Effie and Zebulon. Those are my best friends.
They're so good. So when Gloria enters the diner, there's like an old-timey radio box.
Mm-hmm.
and it's playing like gospel music. And there's a preacher man on there, and he's like, "Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mucklewane Hour of Power."
That's a pretty good impression.
Yeah, I feel like I could do better. We'll work on it.
Yeah.
And then eventually, while Gloria's freaking out while all this gobbledygook is happening, the radio says, "Gloria, my husband and I have a word."
Yeah.
And Gloria's like, "What is happening?"
It is the perfect moment to be like, okay, I'm going insane.
That I think that's exactly what she says.
The radio's talking to me. I've lost it.
And so
it's awesome.
It's very good. So we find that the radio both hears and like talks to people, and the two people on the other side of the radio are Effie and Zebulon Mucklewane, a preacher couple from Toadsuck, Arkansas, which I have talked to the Arkansas person I know, two of them, and they confirm that Toadsuck is real.
Toadsuck's real? That's awesome.
Toadsuck is a real city, and so the Mucklewane Hour of Power broadcasts to the wider Toadsuck area.
Very good.
It's one of the greatest things I've ever heard, and it makes me feel so much better about Arkansas as a state. God bless you down there, guys.
Yeah.
And so Effie and Zebulon live on a hog farm in 1920s. I don't know if it gives a specific year, but like 1925, 1920s.
Yeah.
Like outside of Toadsuck, Arkansas.
Yep.
And it's so good. They're they're so funny.
Yeah.
But they're so like also wonderfully like moms and dads throughout the whole.
It's really good.
It's so good, and they're also like genuinely religious. And it's handled in such a like very good way.
Yes, that was also going to be something I brought up because like especially in sci-fi, like whenever religion's brought up, like it's really easy to just have it be like weird and not interesting or fun.
Right. It can be a commentary on like, you know, if the author wants like religion isn't like real or religion is real, but it's not that. It's like a commentary on like how we like experience religion.
Yeah.
And like what our relationship to people is like that are religious and that are not. So Ava, we learn is a super genius. She's a scientist with like a bunch of PhDs. She's a theoretical physicist, and she is not religious. And her and Effie, the wife of the Mucklewane couple, constantly butt heads over it.
Yeah,
and it's so good.
It's awesome.
It's so like their interactions are like very funny, and you're like, that I enjoy this. No matter like you know kind of like who's like putting jabs at each other, it's quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
Really good. I'm sorry that I forgot about the Mucklewanes. Heart you forever, Mucks.
Heart you forever, Mucks. Yeah, I love them.
So all of our characters are voiced by different people. I just want to go through the cast really quick. Gloria is voiced by... That looks to me like Susie Suarez, but almost certainly I don't pronounce that correct.
Just look it up. You'll get it. There's an X in the middle.
Yeah, well...
We're too white to attempt that.
Yeah, I mean, that is also not any of the names that I saw in my Spanish class.
No.
Gloria, much easier for me. So, then Casper's voiced by Joe Fisher. Ava is voiced by Finley Stevenson. Zebulon is voiced by Neil Starbird.
I love the name Zebulon.
Zebulon is one of the greatest names I've ever heard, and I think I will name my firstborn Zebulon.
You should.
Almost certainly this will be the case. It's so good. It feels both like an alien and like my great-grandpappy.
Yes.
I love it so much. Effie is voiced by Julie Cowden Starbird, so they actually are married. Leif is voiced by Tom Mormon, and the whole show is written and directed by Joe Fisher, Casper.
This makes sense.
It makes sense because he always does the intros.
Oh, you're right. He does the, like, it's me, Joe. What's the thing he says in, like, a super deadpan? It's like, hey, party people. But it's just like...
What are you talking about?
Whenever he does the ad reads, he says something party people. but he just says it completely deadpan, and it's awesome.
I did not get this ad read, and I'm so sad to miss out on the party, people.
You gotta find it.
He does frequently do the ad reads.
Yeah.
It's also produced by Joe Fisher and Finley Stevenson. So Casper and Ava produce it. I will call them by that name. Sometimes Joe is the only, or Casper/Joe is the only person that I think of by their first name, because sometimes he says, "Hi, I'm Joe."
He does say, "Hi, I'm Joe."
And yeah, it often does feel, he puts on no voice for Casper, which really makes it sound like Casper is a self-insert. And considering he wrote and directed this podcast, I am borderline convinced of that.
I mean, yeah, from what, just like the tone of it, it's like Casper's voice sounds a little more anxious, and Joe's voice sounds like he's doing fine.
He probably is.
This is the difference.
Perfect. I also love that the episodes end on like some old-timey music.
Yeah.
That is almost certainly just in the public domain.
Yeah.
But it's kind of played by the radio. And so sometimes I will listen to this podcast and then I will go around humming "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." What a friend we have in Jesus.
Yep.
It's very good. Okay. Moving on. Episode 2, Planet Straightforward. Our first adventure. The crew's all together.
Wow.
We're going. So we are traveling. We kind of get to this point where they're traveling through space and time. They have this kind of like, they don't describe it, but I imagine it's like a tunnel, like a Doctor Who style, like tunnel graphic that they're going through.
That just feels correct
for
like the tone.
It does.
Just knowing that there's a sentient radio in 1920s Arkansas. Toadsuck, Arkansas really sets the whole vibe for this diner, it's really awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy that those are characters that they made, and it's all like more crazy that this podcast would not feel as full without them.
No,
because so many times like Effie and Zebulon aren't doing the main action, but it's like they have to be there. That's very good. So we get this, this whooshy, 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 whooshy sound effect. So you know that you're in this traveling in between space. And so we get a little bit of Gloria talking to people. We kind of go over our roster a little bit. Ava is scientist. Leif is the cook. He also can take the diner back in time for reasons.
Yeah.
Casper has no discernible skills.
Casper is like the one who's been around the longest.
Yes.
Like that's very much his archetype of being like you're kind of like, if you were not in this diner, I think you'd maybe break down completely.
Yes.
Because you've just been here forever.
Yeah, that's definitely what it, like, most of Casper's stuff boils down to, I've been here and I'm kind of a miserable person.
Yeah.
Kind of, that's how you should imagine this character if you haven't listened to it.
Yeah.
To the podcast. And then we get a little conversation with Effie and Zebulon. We talk to them a little bit, and we learn that Effie has this kind of sixth sense about like where, what's going to happen when we get places. And so Gloria talks to Casper and is like, how does this whole thing work? And Casper's like, there's generally two kinds of situations. We're gonna, is that how, no, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then they will go around when they like touch down and they'll be like screaming about situation A or B.
That's right. So there's situation A, which is like, everything is fine and somebody just like wants to come in and like have like some food. And the situation B, which is like we're gonna touch down and something is going to try to kill us and like destroy us. Casper has this theory, is like, the universe hates this place. Ava has talked about the Midnight Burger is what she calls a point of null entropy. Nothing changes. It's this moving point where the universe is not going through entropy. There's no like decay. Like nothing is changing. And Casper thinks that the universe, like all the multiverses, hate that and kind of want to destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
But he also thinks that in like a type A situation, people need Midnight Burger. They need a place to go and just feel better. Why, like,
to be outside the chaos of the universe.
Exactly. So that leads us to touchdown on a planet. And did I say the name of this episode?
No.
It's Planet Straightforward. Effie's sense is really vague. She's like, I think there's going to be some
teeth.
Teeth. That's what she says.
She says teeth.
There's teeth.
Super helpful.
Right. So they get down on the planet and they kind of go around. They're like, this is a very like lush, beautiful planet. It's really nice. It seems totally fine. Maybe this is a type A situation. Totally chill day. And they're like, yeah, maybe this is type A. And then there's this giant monster, which I don't know exactly how they describe it. In my mind, I'm just imagining it's just like a big guy with a really big mouth.
I remember they, for whatever reason, said panda multiple times.
No, that's the other creature.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh. I thought they said it about both, but maybe not. I was just envisioning bears mostly.
Mostly bears.
But like weirder.
It's very vague, so you can get whatever you want out of it. There's some sort of big mouth monster.
Big thing.
That is trying to like break into the diner. And they're like, it's a type B situation. We're all going to die. But it tries to break in. It can't. And they're like, okay, we're just going to wait this one out. Type B. We're all good. Not even a problem.
Chill.
Eventually it goes away. And they're like, cool. We're going to be fine. Like, Casper proposes night breakfast. As a reward, as a day off, they're going to have night breakfast. I don't know why I love the night breakfast bit so much.
It's really awesome.
Effie says the wonderful line, night breakfast is tempting because it is forbidden.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. So the Casper just kind of wants to chill out and not do anything. They look outside. They see that there's this really cute creature. It's like this panda fox thing.
Panda.
It's really adorable. They're like, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah.
And then they see the big monster comes back, and they're like, no, it's going to die. And then the big monster doesn't eat it. And they're like, this is really weird. This is super strange. That animal looks really eatable. They're like, what's going on there? And so there's this constant conversation of maybe this is just Planet Straightforward. Like, maybe this is a big monster that wants to eat us all. Let's not think too big about it or think too much about it. But then they're like, but it's not eating the little guy. It feels like there's something more going on here. And so maybe it's playing it backwards.
Yeah. Caspar really wants it to be an ignorable situation.
It's just Planet Straightforward.
Caspar really wants to not have to worry about anything, and everyone else is like, we should get involved.
We should think about this.
We should think about this. Caspar just wants night breakfast.
Night breakfast.
Night breakfast.
Now I want night breakfast. Anna, can we have night breakfast?
Sure.
Hell yeah. Wow, that was a great night breakfast, Honor.
Wow,
Thanks.
Wasn't it awesome? You're so welcome.
Eventually, the crew just gives up. There's really nothing that they can figure out here. The monster's waiting outside, and they're like, well, whatever. And so Casper's like, Ava, Leif, let's go play dice. Like, let's go play dice in the back. Yeah. And they're like, you're a terrible gambler. He's like, I'm hot.
Yeah. He's feeling really great about not having to worry about something.
Right. So they leave, and Gloria has a conversation with the Mucklewains. And then Effie's like, well, actually, we know exactly what's going on here. Yeah. And Gloria's like, what? They're like, yeah, we just know. We don't know everything, but like we just know these things.
Yeah.
And apparently the monster was created by some creature, or by like something else, right? It's not natural, and was created, and it can only like cannibalize. It can only eat like others of its own species.
Yeah. And
Gloria's like, that's horrifying. And Effie and Zebulon are like, yeah, it is, and it's really sad.
Yeah, it's really sad.
And Gloria realizes that when she went outside, she picked up like a bone, something that was from one of the Monster Zone species.
Teeth. As Effie said.
Picked up a big handful of teeth.
Handful of teeth.
That's not what she did. She got a jawbone, but I like the idea that she was just rattling around.
Just rattling.
And then so Gloria's like, that's so sad. We should do something. So she lets it in. She lets it in the diner and gives it a cup of coffee, and it just like sits down in a booth and doesn't drink the coffee. Doesn't seem.
No,
it just
it's
holds
holding it. Yeah,
which is really funny.
Yeah.
The others come back and they're like, "Whoa, this is crazy," and Gloria's like, "Yeah, this is really sad," and explains the sitch. And then that's kind of where the episode ends.
Yeah, they say some like vague thing about like maybe introducing a cup of coffee to this like ecosystem would change their DNA or whatever, and I was like, whatever. Just say the holding the cup of coffee makes it happy and move on.
Yeah, it's kind of like maybe this will fix the whole thing.
But probably not.
Yeah. Whoosh to the next episode.
Next episode.
Away from the monster.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The next episode I really love. Episode 3, The X Stops By.
The X Stops By. That was an interesting one.
I love it so much. So they're in a 1930s coal strike. The coal miners aren't going to work.
Yeah.
And
Ava gets a lot of moonshine.
Well, so they're in this coal strike. That's like all the people that have come into the diner are these like coal miners, and they're serving them. And Gloria's like, they're all really racist. And Leif's like, yeah, but they're all going to have their knees broken in like a week, so don't even worry about it. She's like, that doesn't feel better. And he's like, what? So they kind of like have these coal miners on. Effie takes on the persona of Calamity Jane, which really never comes up that much again.
It's just, yeah.
But Zebulon is like, she does this from time to time.
Yep.
So all the coal miners leave at the end of the shift, and they're like, we need to do inventory. Like, we actually, what is it? Not the deep freeze, the other place. The walk-in closet randomly generates food, but it doesn't do it at a consistent time interval, and also normal food. Yeah. So they're like, we need to do emergency inventory. I've got, Leif's like, I've got a bunch of cash. Just go, like, buy stuff. Like, buy food for us so that we can, like, make burgers and things. Yeah. So everybody goes to different places to get stuff. And then Gloria stays back because she was like working the hardest, so she's just going to take a break. And then this entity walks in and is like, where's Casper? And she's like, what? Gloria's like, what's happening? And it goes, where's Casper? And she's like, I don't know. How do you know who Casper is? And then the person like goes, target acquired. Yeah. And then seems like we get this strange scene of Gloria arguing with her ex-boyfriend Caesar.
But the voice of the ex-boyfriend is the voice of the entity.
Yes,
that just
of this like person that comes in.
Yeah.
And so then the person leaves, like storms out, and Gloria's like, what the hell just happened? Like Gloria was like so in it as if it was her ex-boyfriend. Yeah. Like totally convinced. And she's like, what happened? And Gloria was like 10 minutes had passed, and then the Ava and Leif get back, and they're like, it's been 2 hours, right? Yeah. So there's some weird funky business going on there.
There's always time moving around.
That time. Dang it, time. Take a chill pill. Stop running around so dang much. Gloria explains what happened. Ava, Leif are like, it's the X. Some like person or being that meets the diner in various points in time and just comes in and pretends to be their ex, and you have no choice but to argue with it. Casper gets back, and they're like, Casper, the ex is back. And he's like, we have to lock it down. We have to lock it down now.
Casper's always freaking out about something.
Always freaking out. And so, I really like the phrase emotional terrorist that he uses. He's like, she's an emotional terrorist. And I think about that. Sometimes I want to call people that. I'm like, that's probably too extreme.
Yeah. Which is also what they say to Casper.
Yeah. So Gloria's like, we got to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Casper's like, absolutely not. So the crew puts Casper in the walk-in closet and locks him in there. And so Ava, Leif, who is frequently called Leaf, which is rad. Ava and Casper always call him Leaf, even though his name is Leif.
It's because they think they're pronouncing it right, which I think is the funnier way to do that.
So good.
They're like, yeah, that's what we said.
So sometimes I call him Leaf.
Yeah.
And Gloria, they all get together and they're like, what are we going to do? And so Leif is like, maybe she's an android.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And it's like, yeah, that would make sense. I don't remember why it makes sense, but he says it, so I buy him. And he's like, what if we overloaded it? What if we overloaded its processing and then it would have to like shut down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, okay, when it comes back, we're all going to argue with it super hard. And so that's what they do. The X comes back. The Mucklewain's distracted for a little bit. Zebulon gets to talk about his pet pig Pansy.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Love me a little Pansy lore.
Yeah.
Effie is so over talking about Pansy.
Yeah. Effie's like, okay.
Whatever.
Sounds like you love this pig more than you love me, is what she says to her husband.
Is yes, but it's so good.
It's awesome.
So then X comes back. They all argue with the X. We get to learn about each of their exes, which is great. Gloria's ex's most prominent ex is Caesar, who's kind of this like traditional like
sucky boyfriend.
Yeah, he's just like, I kind of just want you to be like a stay-at-home wife. And she's like, that's not what I'm into. Ava, her most prominent ex-boyfriend is Chad, who is a baker.
Mm-hmm.
And Leif has been out amongst the stars for a long time.
Yeah.
His most prominent ex is, what's her name?
I don't remember, but it's an alien.
It's an alien. It's an alien, and it's awesome because the conversation they have is... Well, at one point, Leif says, sweetheart, you lay eggs.
Yeah.
And the ex goes, why do you keep bringing that up? Because it's important.
Yeah.
Your parents tried to eat me.
It's tradition.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So eventually they argue with the thing until it overloads and like shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we have defeated the X. They unlock Casper and he's like, she's gone. They're like, yes. Casper's like, okay. You know, there's kind of this like hunk of metal laying on the floor. And he's like, yeah, I'll take the X out and get rid of it. And then he says some like really cryptic stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what he says.
I don't remember either. I just remember being like, what?
Yeah, he just makes some allusion to his past.
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, Casper does have a mysterious past. Thanks for letting me know that. Joe
Yeah.
Fisher, writer of Midnight Burger.
Yeah. Yep.
Then we go to episode 4. What's the frequency, dearest? Gloria trips on the dial to the radio, and then they lose Effie and Zebulon. Like Effie and Zebulon aren't there anymore because it's switched to a different station. And they're like, what? That's never happened before.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, Gloria, what the heck? And so they have to like turn the dial.
There's like stuff with prime numbers and
yes. I forget. So she trips on the turns the dial. The diner stops moving. Like it was going through, its little wormhole. Stops moving outside of a black hole. And they're like, we're going to fall into this black hole. We're in space. We're going to die.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, we need to get Effie and Zebulon back. Somehow they're in control of this. And they turn to different radio stations. And it's the Starbirds, the actors for Effie and Zebulon but they're like playing different bits.
Yeah.
And I love it so much.
It's really awesome. I love the whole radio thing.
It's so good. They're a sportscaster at some point. They're like an NPR news show at some point.
I loved when they mentioned the Chiefs.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They were talking about football.
Boo.
It's like, yes.
And then my favorite of these like little vignettes of these little characters is Dr. Barbara. Dr. Barbara is like a call-in like psychology show. And I forget what like the name of Zebulon's character is in that bit. But he's like, Dr. Barb, I just had a wonderful time with my family. That's fantastic. We're going to take another caller in today. And so they like call into these shows and they're like, what's happening? You know, the crew of the Midnight Burger does. And so eventually Ava realizes that they're like passing these signals through these like obscure ways. So they like
there's like codes and stuff.
There's codes. There's like they say in the different radio shows prime numbers, and they're like, oh, okay. They figure out that they're trying to communicate with them by having them turn the dial to specific like locations. And eventually the final thing is just like their final message is go through the black hole.
Yep.
Eventually the crew just falls into a black hole because like no one's ever been in a black hole before. Yeah. And then they just show up some other place and everything is fine.
Yeah, it's just like nothing happens.
And Effie and Zebulon are like, we lost you there. We had strange storms.
Yeah. Yep.
And Ava's like, what is with you guys? And she's like now determined to like figure out what's the deal with the radio. Then we get on to another episode that I really love, which is episode 5, The Ad Man Cometh.
I did really like that one.
Oh, it's so good. So before they land someplace, the crew is talking about like where they're gonna go, and Casper talks about how, well, Effie says basically they're gonna go to an alternate Earth, and Casper's like, these always suck because they're always a dystopian, like a dystopia. He says that like the multiverse has generalized anxiety disorder about Earth and like all the different ways it can go wrong.
So it's always worse.
It's always worse.
Which only gets worse.
Which is great to know that we're doing the best we can.
Yeah.
And so they... Oh, also, this is the first episode where we have a previously on Midnight Burger.
Yeah. Did they do that on any of the other episodes?
They do. Because
I only noticed it on that one.
They think they do it on another one in the first season. They do it on a couple ones in the first season, but they don't do it before that. They do it, I think, on every episode of season 2. So
really?
Yeah.
I only heard it on that episode, and it was a recap of every episode before.
Yeah, it was strange.
It was like longer than it needed to be.
They may not do it on the episodes after that, but they definitely do it in season 2 a lot, and season 3 some. I think they do it on every episode, season 2 and season 3.
Gotcha.
So you could theoretically like...
They just did one mid-season recap.
I know. It's a strange idea.
1.
I think they might do another one in season 1. I'm not sure. But this is the first one, which is somebody who like likes this podcast is like, oh, that's funny to see like how it developed.
Yeah.
What the hell? I have a note here, and I don't know what it means. To me, it looks like I just wrote communion.
Effie and Zebulon thing?
No. I know what it is. We'll get to it in a second.
Oh, communism.
Communism.
Yes, I wrote one single note.
Are you for real?
Yes. Let me pull it up because it's the best quote from this episode, which is, "This Molotov cocktail is brought to you by communism."
So good. So they land on this Earth. They meet this woman.
Yeah.
And what they find out is on this world the economy went bad because of robots. Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And everyone has now had like chips implanted in them to spew ads.
Yep.
Like somehow this is like funding society. Like everything is ads. Like people they talk about a bunch of different things that happen. Like people change their names to get student loans forgiven. People put up any space they had for advertisement, and then eventually like these chips to make you like every like 5th sentence like do an ad. Like it became mandatory. Yeah. So this woman is like in this resistance. Like she doesn't want this like chip anymore, and the crew's like, this sucks.
Yeah.
We also like meet this sheriff character who is I should find out the name of the actor.
Yeah, I remember like Gloria got really excited to go to a dystopia because she was thinking about like TV shows and stuff that were dystopias, and she was like, they got like cool costumes and like fun music, and then they get here and she's like, this sucks because it could happen.
Yeah. She's like,
and is bad.
This one's not interesting. This is where they mentioned the TV show Sliders I've never heard of.
Yeah.
But her and Leif just talk about Sliders for a bit, which is great.
It comes up multiple episodes. They talk about Sliders.
The police officer they meet is Officer Valvoline.
Oh, yeah.
He's voiced by Benjamin Burdick. And so he is actually, what I think is interesting is the like guest starring, the like ensemble cast. Frequently, they voice several characters in different episodes. So Benjamin Burdick is in a bunch of episodes in season 2, where his name is Ted. His name isn't really Ted, but everyone calls him Ted. So I was like, oh my gosh, I know this guy. He's also in season 3 a lot. Anyway, so they talk to this police officer, and he's like, there's a dangerous woman around. If you know her, talk to Officer Valvoline. These overt threats have come to you by Delta.
Yeah.
Delta Airlines.
Yep.
Then they're like, man, this sucks to this woman. They're like, we're going to help you. And she's like, how? And they're like, well, what is your plan? She's like, I wanted to like broadcast to people uninterrupted. I wanted to have the chip off, and I want to like just remind people what it's like to like talk without having ads implanted in your speech. This message of hope brought to you by Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
And so Leif is like, well, he looks at her chip and is like, it's got like heat sinks on it, so we could probably overheat it if I use my blowtorch. And everyone on the crew is like, what?
Huh?
What? How do you know
Leif?
that? He's
What?
like, I'm a cook. Anyway, they do that. They take the chip off her, put it on
Casper, and it's awesome.
Swears a lot, and then has to put ads in his swearing. It's so good.
So funny. I listened to him do that string of swear words and then be like, this string of swear words is brought to you by whoever. I hate this.
It's
like
so
multiple
good.
times. It was really funny.
Great delivery. This is when Leif goes outside. So now she makes this broadcast, and they've got this like tracking beacon on the chip. She makes this broadcast, and then the diner is surrounded by cops, and that's when Leif lights up a Molotov cocktail, throws it down, and says, "This Molotov cocktail is brought to you by communism."
Yeah.
And he's like, "That'll set them off," and they're like, "Communists, stand down."
Better
they're very
dead
afraid
than
of
red.
So good.
It's an awesome anti-capitalist episode.
The lady makes her speech. It was great. She puts the chip back on to like have solidarity with her fellow resistance members.
And so Casper doesn't have to have it.
Yeah, and Ava's like, God, activists are the worst.
Yeah.
And then they zip off. But they're like...
They zip off.
And so we get some hints of like, Leif, why does he know so much science stuff?
Yeah.
Ava, again, is like, Radio, I got questions for you, Radio. Oh, episode 6. Leif's. Oh, God, I love this one.
It's pretty good.
They're just on they're on Thegrion. Anyway, Thegrion's on this planet. It's got a day of mourning. Everyone's sad, and so the Midnight Burger shows up there every year
to serve food
to these sad people. Whatever. Effie has a sense that the devil is in the building.
Yeah.
Satan.
That is what she keeps saying.
She's like, it's the devil. And what we find out is who she's referring to is there's a guy in the booth which looks like Leif, but older.
She also she goes, the devil is at booth 12.
That is, yeah, she names him. She's like, that's the one.
Satan is at table 12.
Do not believe the deceiver.
Yeah.
It's very good. Leif goes over and talks to older Leif. We learn they have to pry it out, but we learn that the contents of their conversation is older Leif is like, you left a gold mine on Earth. You need to like go back there and fix it. And what they find out is that Leif was an engineer, went to UCLA Berkeley. Is that actually, no, that's not UC Berkeley.
I don't know.
Well, I I don't know what they've got out there.
He went to school.
He went to school. He's an engineer. He's a very, very talented engineer. And he had this experiment on Earth with a bunch of other engineers to make black matter? Antimatter?
Yeah, it was antimatter stuff. But
Yeah.
then it was like they figured it out way too fast.
Yeah, they figured it out, and they figured out how to harness energy from it. And it's just free energy, and it's the best thing, and it would solve all the problems.
Yeah.
And so they come out of this experiment, and they are met by these aliens called the Teds. And the Teds are like, hey, you can't tell people about this.
Yeah.
We won't let you.
We need to confiscate this.
Because you're going to kill yourselves if you guys do this. We're looking after you.
Mhm.
And Leif's like, okay, well, I got one condition. Take me to space. And they're like,
Space.
and the Teds are like, whatever. And they drop him off at a spaceport, and he's like, well, there are so many aliens. It's awesome. And anyway, later in life, Leif's like, the Teds suck. I really kind of wish I didn't do that. And older Leif is like, you need to go back to Earth and tell people about your, antimatter, whatever.
And make lots of money.
Make lots of money and be someone. Very this obsession with being someone. And so Leif's like, I don't know. And then an even older Leif.
And he's awesome.
It's so good. There's a Leif. So there's Leif from the future, and then Leif from farther in the future, who is even older, like 80, 90 years old.
83.
83, thank you. He's like, I spent some time in space, and I'm chill now.
Yeah.
So Leif, even older Leif, is super chill, and he's like, don't go with this bozo to make to make yourself somebody. Just like be satisfied.
Just hang out.
It's all good. Don't even worry about it. And so Leif's like, yeah, I don't know what to do. And then Ava's like, hold on. Older Leif, even older Leif. Meet this person, Gloria. And they're like, who is this? And so Ava's like, aha, I didn't think you guys would know this. They're from other timelines where there was no Gloria.
Mm-hmm.
So Leif, you're not going to become these guys. These are just other guys. And
Yeah.
they're like, wow, this sucks.
She's just like, this is all irrelevant because of the multiverse.
Yeah.
So, like, whatever.
Which doesn't, like, I didn't really understand it, but I was like, whatever. Older Leif and even older Leif have a fist fight in the parking lot.
Yep.
So
they just
good.
agree to beat each other up.
Which I love because even older Leif has, like, a cyborg arm.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's like, is this, like, middle-aged man just gonna beat up this old dude? Like, is it just gonna suck? And then he's like, actually, what he doesn't know is I'm going to kill him.
Yeah. So they fight all the morning, the Gronies. They go out there and they're like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Then we go to episode 8, which is Into the Deep Freeze. Oh, no, we don't do that. We go to episode 7, which is Four Souls.
Yeah.
Forgot about this episode. Effie and Zebulon are being weird. They're only playing Latin music for some reason. They don't really know why.
They keep quoting the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
They do keep quoting
instead of the Christian Bible.
Yeah, it's very strange. Zebulon's like, according to the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And he's like, what?
But
did
in
I
his
just
Christian
say?
preacher voice,
Yeah.
which is funny.
He's like not intentionally doing it. He's
No.
just like, this is not awesome.
Yeah.
The crew lands at this crashed spaceship, and they're like, wow, everybody died on this spaceship. That's really sad. Except there's a little robot man. He pops out, beep, bop, boop, bop, and he's like, hello,
Beep, beep.
my name's Bufar. Great name.
Yep.
And I was this ship's AI. I've downloaded myself into a little robot man. I'm going to die really soon.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, Bufar, this is super sad. And he's like, yeah, I know. And they're like, Leif, can you do something? And he's like, no. So they just like hang with this dying robot for a bit.
Yeah.
Bufar's got some weird stuff going on. He's doing a bunch of stuff that he doesn't like know why he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are like, well, they try to give Bufar some like rest.
Yeah.
So he's downloaded like all the people's, although there's 3 crew members of the ship, download all their personal logs, and then they kind of like all role play a scene with each of them.
Yeah. As a way of like getting him to reminisce, because as a robot he just keeps like summarizing them and
Yes.
being like, okay, complete, and they're like, no, you're not like processing.
Sure. And so they have one with the ship captain who's like, I want to go home and talk to some friends at a bar. And they're like, yeah, we'll do that. And so they're like, hey, captain. He's like, hello. I want to divorce my wife.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay.
I remember them going, oh, right. No one else was supposed to read these.
Yep. Then they do one with the science officer, and he debates Ava, where they're like, he's like, I think that there's a theory of everything. And Ava's like, that's dumb. And the Bufar's like, yeah, actually, that is dumb. The science officer didn't believe that. It's like, it's all just a mess. And she's like, yep. And then the youngest member, wants to go on a date. So Bufar and Gloria have a date. And it's kind of cute. But then they find out that, the secret mission of this spaceship was to find Midnight Burger.
Yep.
And then they, the crew realizes that. Bufar realizes that. And he's like, oh, we found you.
I just realized, I don't know if you said at the end of Leif's, the episode about all the Leifs, the oldest Leif puts a chip on the radio.
That's true. If I would follow my notes,
that was kind of the beginning of okay, maybe there's some weird bigger thing going on than just hopping from place to place.
That is right. Even older Leif says it's part of the plan.
Yeah. And then Bufar's like, we are looking for you specifically.
Yes.
Mission complete.
And then he dies.
And
he can't transmit anything, and it's kind of sad.
It's sad.
Episode 8, into the deep freeze. The crew's hanging out, and they're like, where did Gloria go? Hey, did she go to the deep freeze? And they're like, not the deep freeze.
Not the deep freeze. Which there was a brief allusion to in episode 1, and then they came back and revisited it with this whole episode.
Yes. And so they're like, basically the deep freeze, which I don't know if it's a walk-in freezer.
It would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, the walk-in would be, having worked in food service, the walk-in would be a walk-in fridge, and then the deep freeze is very similar, but more hardcore, pretty much.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently Gloria went into the deep freeze. They're like, oh no. They go into the deep freeze, and we realize that there's a pocket dimension in the deep freeze.
Yep. It's like the tundra.
Yes. It's this, snowy, forested place. And they go in there, and they're like, Gloria, and they find her, and apparently she's been in there for a month or two.
Yeah.
They're like, you were gone for 10 minutes. And she's like, that's weird. Well, anyway, I've made friends with a pack of wolves.
Yeah. She's the head of the pack.
Which is awesome. She makes some deer stew for them or something.
Yeah.
Gloria's so good at cooking, and it's always awesome.
She is. It's there's two scientists, a scientist and an engineer around. They're competent in that way, but actually Gloria's the most competent of them.
So consistently.
Yeah.
Very good. And so then they find this Walkman and cassettes. And they realize that these have been left by this Russian scientist. I don't know his name. I forget.
I don't either.
This is a real guy. The real guy disappeared in this conference. He was a Soviet scientist, and he disappeared in this 1960s conference on nuclear something or other.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of different theories, but literally no one knows what happens to this guy.
Yeah.
So, in Midnight Burger, he comes in and he falls into the deep freeze.
Yeah.
And so he has this Walkman and cassette, and he's leaving these messages, and he's like, this is much like my homeland, Russia.
Yeah.
So they follow these cassettes, and they travel for a couple days. We get some very cute, just character moments.
Yeah. They compare it to Lord of the Rings, and Ava's like, I'm Gandalf.
Which is PS.
And you're Gimli, Casper.
That's so
it's
good.
Awesome.
There's a cute little moment where you're like, oh, Casper and Ava they've got a little something there that's not they're we like each other, but we're not going to say that we like each other.
Yeah.
But we're actually going to say that we hate each other.
Yeah, they keep ribbing each other. Yeah.
Eventually they get to the end of their long Lord of the Rings quest, and they find what Leif calls an door, which is just like a teleporter majigger.
Yeah.
And they find the bones of the Russian scientist, and Ava's like real sad about this because she's like, he fell in here, he was super smart, and he never like figured anything out. And she feels like this is an analogy for herself. They use the door, they go back to Burger Joint USA, and it's totally fine.
Yep.
Episode 9, Solitary, Poor, Nasty, Brutish, and Short.
Yeah.
Is an episode where the crew goes to prehistoric times and they meet up with a character named Jane.
Here's something I noticed. They call her Hurricane Jane, right?
Yes.
What was Effie's persona?
Calamity Jane.
Calamity Jane.
Jane's just a good name for causing trouble.
Yeah.
So Jane, Jane, this voice actor is also the voice actor for Loaf Tracks in episode 2 or in season 2, which if you'd listen to season 2, you'd be like, that's awesome.
Nice. I will.
Yeah, this is good. See, Loaf Tracks is a space pirate.
I love pirates.
Under loves piracy.
I love piracy.
Crimes on the high seas.
Crime on the high seas is so fun.
So first thing that happens, they land in prehistoric times. There's like cavemans out there. Jane comes up and is like, "Hi guys, Leif, you and me need to bang now."
Right now. It was the craziest thing.
They immediately bang, and Gloria's like, "What is?"
On the roof.
They go on the roof, which is where Leif hangs out. That's Leif's like spot. He's got chairs up there. It's great. They immediately do that. Gloria's like, "What is happening?" And they're like, "Jane is Ava's like college roommate / like not really friend, but like one of those people that just like hangs out.
You like can't get rid of them.
But yeah, they exist, but you don't really like them.
No.
And so they're like, well, when Jane figured out what the diner was, like one time she came in, Jane is a anthropologist, and Jane wanted to go back to the like origins of humanity, to caveman times.
Yeah.
And so that's what she's done. Jane comes down from the roof, and it's like, Leif, come down from the roof. And he's like, who are your friends down there? And that's all we get from that. Cut to
ad break.
Cut to ad break. Jane comes in the diner, debates Ava on like, humanity is pointless.
Yeah.
This sucks.
Evolution is nothing. Knowing
things sucks. Science sucks. Life as a caveman is way better. They talk about they have this debate for a long time. You get like Ava has this mild crisis of faith because she's sad that she may never figure out the diner, which is like her singular quest in the world.
Yeah.
And then you realize that Jane is stalling because she's captured Leif, because Leif gave her a bunch of tools when she was going to live here the first time to observe cavemen silently. And then she's like, actually, I've just made myself God.
Yeah.
And I want to stop humans from making society, so I'm going to be God.
Yep.
And so I forgot that in this episode, Effie isn't present for most of it because
she's out sick.
Zebulon says that she is ill, and Ava is irked by this because she is a radio voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Jane's like, yeah, I actually have captured Leif, and you guys can't get him back. So sucks to suck. Lol. Bye. Effie comes back and is like, I have awoken from a feverish state.
Yeah.
And Effie's like, Jane, you're not going anywhere. Locks the diner. Didn't know she could do that. And she's like, we shall figure this out.
Yep.
No one do anything. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And they're like, Effie, and then like, just like she goes away.
Yeah.
Cut to Leif is being, is in like a caveman camp. He has like a portable radio on him. And Effie's like, Leif, through the portable radio. And he's like, Effie, how can you get in there? She's like, shut up.
I've always been here.
We're going to do some idolatry. And so then Leif pretends to be a god himself with a big talking box. The cavemen take him back to the diner. They kick Jane out. And Jane's like, whatever, you guys suck. And Leif's like, I have terrible taste in that's so
partners.
True.
Just the whole episode. I think like immediately after hooking up.
Yeah.
Like maybe to her face, to Jane's face, he's like, yeah, I should examine this.
He's like, I got problems. That's so true. He does talk about that
just the whole time.
Which feels accurate, especially, yeah.
Yeah.
last episode of the season, episode 10, big malevolent thing. The crew at the end of the last episode gets stranded in space.
Mm-hmm.
They stop moving through time. They stop jumping around every 24 hours or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They just are stuck in space. It's been several days.
It's because Ava messed with the radio at the end of episode 9.
Oh, that's right.
It was what was it? Did I think Effie told her
Effie did tell her
to mess with the radio, and then the radio went silent. The diner stopped moving.
Yeah,
and then everyone is really mad at Ava.
Yeah, so it jumps to this just point in space, and there's this thing that's bigger than the black hole we saw earlier in the season, and it's just there, and they just call it a big malevolent thing. They give no more description.
Nope.
So they're there for several days.
They also, this just irked me,
Yeah.
was that Leif looked at it and went, "That's over a light year wide." There is no way can you see the width of a light year with your eyes.
I feel like you could probably guesstimate it. If you're like, that's a star and it looks really far away, but it's really
But he
big.
said wide.
Yeah. And it looks about a light year wide, about the distance that you think it would take from. I feel like you can. It just has to be really far away. But this does not seem like it's really far away.
No, it's they're right there,
Yeah.
because then they send Ava into it.
Yes. So
No, it irked me. I was like, I don't like that you said that, Leif. That's dumb.
I think I pondered it for 2/20ths of a second.
Yeah.
Some might say a tenth. I don't. I measure my time in 20ths. So they've just been hanging there, and Casper's like, "Ava, you need to come in the parking lot." She's like, "What for?" Leif has built this mech suit, space suit thing out of trash that they have. And Ava's like, "What do you want me to do with that?" And Casper's like, "You have to get in it." And Ava's like, "I'm not going to." And then they all force her to get in it.
They forcibly put her in it, and I remember her saying ow and making sounds of pain in a way that I was like, oh, this is a little more serious than than the podcast has been thus far.
I forgot
they're mad at Ava.
I forgot that this episode starts with, sometimes they like to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This episode starts with a really long thing that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
This episode starts with Gloria describing her friend Rosa from high school.
Yeah.
Which is it provides no context, and the bit is that Gloria is talking about this because she's like, "Rosa, how did your life end up so crazy?" And Rosa's like, things just kept happening.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "And now I'm in space."
And now I'm in space.
So they load her up in this suit, which is made from parts of Bufar.
Yep.
And then they push her off the edge of the parking lot into space.
Yep.
She uses I forget what the
Lay flip.
Yeah, how do you remember all this?
I listened to it this morning.
Oh my gosh.
The last episode.
Yeah. So she gets pushed off the side. She uses the Navicomputer leaflet to take her to the big malevolent thing. She goes in the big malevolent thing. It's this is really weird.
She starts seeing people's first days, right before they encountered the diner. And it's, kind of going backward in terms of, who joined most recently. Because she, sees Gloria and then I think sees... I don't remember if she sees Leif.
She does.
She's herself.
Yes.
Notably doesn't get to Casper.
She doesn't get to Casper? Really?
I don't think so. No, because I remember being like, ooh, we're going to figure out, when Casper... Because Casper's the one who's, most kind of cagey about it.
Right.
And it's he's clearly been here the longest and kind of seems to have no ties to anything else. So I was like, what's Casper's deal? And then she didn't get to it.
I forgot about that. That is true. It is revealed later.
Nice.
So, yeah, we see all the intros to how people came into the diner. And then, most interestingly, we get this little scene of a woman and a man, a couple, which are voiced by the same voice actors for Effie and Zebulon.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working in this like radio telescope in Puerto Rico, and they're like, we are gonna throw away our careers and take like all the power from the island and like shoot out this message into space.
Yep.
They're also getting really high on weed while they're doing this.
Yeah.
And so they do this, and then they hear Ava, and Ava's like, what is that sound?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, this is this message to communicate with like aliens. Who are you? We're trying to do this thing. And she's like, oh, I know what this thing is. This is really dumb.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, whatever. Who are you? And she's like, I'm a doctor. Don't worry about it. And then they like talk and realize that, oh my gosh, this is Effie's and Zebulon's great granddaughter and her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a radio telescope lady.
Yeah.
And Ava's like, oh my gosh, this is genius. You need to keep sending the signal. Something heard you. Like something connected you with me.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else out there
yeah.
that's like kind of conspiring to make all this stuff happen. And she's like, keep sending this message. Invest in Apple. It'll be great.
Invest in Apple.
They're like the 1960s or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she gets back to the diner eventually, and she's like, I figured it out. OMG, I figured it out. And did she say what she figured out at this point?
Yes, she figured out that it's like kind of in vague terms still that I assume would get like more explained later, but she's like the radio, she describes it as like a human trying to like get to know an ant. Which
right.
It's like you can't like really speak the same language as an ant, not because it's like higher intelligence than you, but because it's so much simpler and
right.
like lower and smaller. And so she describes like there's some other entity out there that we are the ant to, and so
close to the microphone.
Yeah. And so she's like, basically, then imagine the human tries to make an ant.
Right.
And like because it's so much simpler, like making a fake ant, like actually it doesn't even matter. Like it just made a real thing on accident.
Yes.
And that was what Effie and Zebulon were they were like, okay, so this thing made artificial intelligences, and Ava's like, no, it just did such a good job on accident. These are just people.
Right. Intelligences.
These are just intelligences.
But they live in a box.
But they live in a box. That is a radio.
But then they're like, Ava. They took Casper.
And that's the end.
That's the end of the season. Okay. Honor.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Midnight Burger? And then I'm going to go through the season 2 and season 3, and you can plug your ears.
Awesome. I like Midnight Burger. I like it. I think I will finish it. And then maybe we do an episode where we return and we talk about it when I've actually finished it.
Midnight Burger returns. It's very good. The sound design is not always like top notch. Well, we had great sound design in Chrysalis.
Mm-hmm.
This is sometimes okay, especially in big crowds.
Yeah.
Midnight Burger does not do very well.
No, but I think when they're like in the diner and stuff, like it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And the thing I really like is that they have, it really is like Effie and Zebulon, this radio, this old-timey sound in a diner especially. Like it really sets this atmosphere that like does a lot for them in terms of setting an aesthetic and like a vibe that is fun and cool. So then it's less like when you've got something going on that's just like cool and fun, you don't have to worry as much about being like accurate and like entirely convincing, because it's like there's like these funny little people in this radio box,
right?
And Leif just made a suit out of kitchen appliances.
And Bufar.
And Bufar. And so I really like the vibe and atmosphere that they've got. I think it's fun and intriguing. And a good selling point. I really like the characters.
Yeah.
I think the characters are the strong suit of it.
The voice acting and writing is very good, and that's really what sells this.
Yeah.
There are fun adventures. So in that way, the characters and like kind of the setting, the writing is very good. Sometimes, like dialogue or certain stuff, could be made better.
Could be better. Could be tightened up.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that can be a turnoff for certain people, as being like, okay, I don't need them to talk about the supermassive black hole again.
Yeah. Yeah, there were definitely moments like that. Like, I think you might be sad. There were like longish sections in the X that I listened to on double speed because I was like, you just are arguing for like too many minutes with your ex that I don't care about.
The double speed is a curse. It is a curse and should only be used for informational podcasts or if you're being forced by the government to listen to a medium.
Or
incorrect.
Or for if it's like, okay, this dialogue could have been half the time.
But you have to enjoy the story, even if just stop listening at that point.
Well, I didn't want to. I was like, I like the character moments.
Your wants and feelings are wrong.
I also had to listen to it for this podcast.
So then do it on one speed like a normal freak.
Yeah, there's parts where the dialogue could be tightened up.
Fair.
But it's definitely like, it's more when they're doing like plot stuff that's the time that happens. When it's just like characters interacting and like ribbing each other and riffing off each other, it's really fun. And I really enjoy it. If it hasn't been evident, Casper's my favorite character.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's very surprising.
I really like his delivery of lines, and just like, I don't know, he has this vibe, which I think there's definitely like archetypes they're playing into, and especially like the common trope of like a group of people who's in a bizarre circumstance, especially like in episode 1, you see it, where it's like people in a bizarre circumstance who it's like boring to them at this point. Not boring, but like mundane.
Sure.
And like, yeah, this is how we operate. But like, that's an appealing and common trope for a reason.
Yeah.
Of like combining like bizarre circumstance and like a lot of worry and stuff with just like mundanity and not quite resignation, but just like, you know how this goes now.
Right.
And I really like that in Casper, of this like if anyone was like the owner of Midnight Burger, it'd be him, but like he's also like, he's just like a guy.
He's also totally along for the ride.
Totally along for the ride.
Absolutely.
Like, doesn't make any claim to like be competent or in charge, but it is like when stuff's happening, the person everyone looks to be like the one voice a lot of time is Casper.
Right.
Because it's like he's been around the most, everyone knows him the most, but also the least, because he's real cagey.
Yes.
But it's like this interesting central figure where he's not the protagonist, but he is kind of the center that they kind of revolve around.
Yeah, he's not really a grounding force, but he is in some way like a normal person to relate to, with Ava being really like a super genius and Leif being like, here's all this techie stuff.
Yeah.
He's just there, and that's kind of also an interesting character to explore, who like kind of doesn't do anything. Yeah.
And he's got that, like you said, he's just miserable all the time.
Yeah.
And he kind of is. Because I feel like there is just that like underlying feeling of like, it's never really addressed, but it's like, oh, you don't have anything outside of this place and these people.
Right.
So like, if they left you or you couldn't stay in this place, you would melt down. You'd melt down. You'd have a meltdown. That's what would happen, buddy.
It's very good.
Yeah, and all the characters I feel like have interesting things going on for them like
yes,
that.
Absolutely.
In ways that you can like get in, like break them down and like.
Yes, you want to like know more about each character, but also kind of once you know more, you like that's cool, and also like what they're doing about like the stuff I know about them is cool, right?
Yeah, I think the characters are the strong point of this podcast.
Agreed. Midnight Burger. I couldn't remember what the podcast was called. I was gonna say podcast, but that's not right. Midnight Burger has 2 and like a 10th more seasons. So there's season 2, season 3, and season 4 just came out. I have not listened to the first episode of season 4. If you are a subscriber, you can listen to season 4, episode 1 and 2. We're going to quickly go over them because season 2 is my favorite.
Nice.
Season 2 is awesome. So, Casper's been taken by the Ted Empire. We realize that the Ted Empire controls the Triad, which is 3 galaxies, the Milky Way, Andromeda, and Triangulum. I think that's what it's called. And so it controls all these galaxies, but not by controlling any territory, by being like a massive like bureaucratic nightmare. So the Teds like sell everything to everyone, and they sell these Ted tubes, which lets you travel from system to system, right? And they also like sell people their water and their energy and their food and like everything. So they control everything, but they don't administer any planets. They also operate via like there's no like one person at the top. It's by committee, and everyone just follows the rules. They make rules and memos, and that is how they maintain cohesion, and you can never like destroy it because the rules are still there. So Casper's taken by the Teds. They're like, Casper, we need to like, you have to tell us where Ava Maddox is because we need to understand the diner. He's like talking to this guy who is a Ted, and he keeps calling him Ted, and he's like, my name's not Ted. He's like, all right, Ted, whatever you say, buddy. There we learn about Casper's intro to the diner. He just like wanders in one day. And we also find out that the reason that they take Casper and not anyone else is because when they get there, Ted shows up with a bunch of robots. He's on this spaceship with just a bunch of robots, and they show up and they zap Casper, put him unconscious. Then Leif has a purple nullifier, a bomb. He has a bomb, and he says, I'm going to use this unless you retreat. And they're like, you won't. But he's like, yeah, I won't. But you know what? I know you follow the rules, and the rules say make concessions and fall back. So they do. So then they take Casper. Casper then, there's someone boards the spaceship that Casper's on. Casper is like running with Ted to an escape pod, and Ted's like, the rules say I got to jettison you out the escape pod. And Casper actually tells him, he's like, no, you don't. He tells them how he met Ava or something like that, some information he wanted to know, and then he puts Ted in the escape pod and shoots him out. There, he gets rescued, or there's somebody who comes on the ship, and he's like, you, cut to next episode. The first episode is the Arkansas Traveler, by the way, which really doesn't, nothing happens. The Arkansas Traveler is a reference to one of the state songs of Arkansas. It's like a nothing episode. It's one of those just adventure episodes.
Yeah.
But Ava realizes that the diner is no longer traveling through time. It's stuck in time. It's not going through dimensions either. It's in the same dimension at the same time. We learn that the Teds have trapped them there via some space magic, via the wind chimes they call them, which is like time crystals. Basically, the diner can't go to other dimensions or other times. So it's stuck there until the Teds find it and destroy it. We find out that Casper's rescued by the X. She lives at the bottom of a creek for a really long time, and then like reconstructs herself, and now she's like conscious. And she's
wish I lived at the bottom of a creek for a really long time.
It'd be great for your pores.
It'd be awesome.
We find out that the X was made by Casper's ex-wife, who in one dimension is a super genius scientist but couldn't save their marriage. And so the X's job was to go through every dimension and confront every version of Casper.
That's crazy to me because in my mind, I think Casper was like 23.
That is, it is unclear. I don't think he is 23.
I would assume not if he has an ex-wife.
So, hey, you can have an ex-wife at any age.
He could.
So the X is actually this kind of indestructible being that can travel through time and space at will. And she's like, I want to become a person. She also tells Casper, she can read minds. She tells Casper that she's like, hey, BTW, you were at the diner. You are 173 years old. You were at the diner for like a really long time before Leif or Ava showed up.
Whoa.
Then Leif is like, yeah, we're stuck in this time. I'm going to go, I'm going to fight the Teds. I was formerly a criminal. That's why I have bombs. I'm going to go get my stash. And then they meet a lawyer man who's like, I'm going to kill you. Then at that time, this is crazy, but Zebulon and Effie inhabit the robots that the lawyer man has, and they're like, I am an automaton. It's very good. The group escapes. The X and Casper go to Cowboy Land that's inhabited by robot cowboys to rescue even older Leif, who was trying to raise an army of robot cowboys. And they have a Western duel with the sheriff. But Casper has a really great Western persona of a riverboat gambler.
That's awesome.
Then Midnight Burger goes to a planet that's really like dark, and it's because the Teds have put a Dyson sphere over the star, which means they've covered it up for power reasons. But then they find that there's a little plant person there. Her name is Shell. She saves them from other plant person. And they're like, Shell, your planet's dying. She's like, I know, it's super sad, right? And they're like, Shell, come with us. And she's like, I guess, okay. Shell's a plant person, but is always confused and speaks through spores. Then Gloria's like, this sucks. I hate the Teds. They're destroying these little plant people. I declare war on the Tedman. Then Casper, there's an alternate. You get it. The Casper Leaf, even older Leif, are like, Gloria has declared war on the Teds. We learned about this. She's like rampaging through the galaxy, breaking their stuff. It's actually really awesome. She destroyed like a cryptocurrency exchange or something.
Awesome.
Then they're like, we're going to help out. We're going to rescue Bert, who was formerly a journalist but is now like been plugged in to the mind machine for the Teds. And so now she's like a propaganda agent. So we're going to go to the Ted homeworld. We're actually going to go to the reason that the Teds don't want Earth to have antimatter technology is because they're like, actually, Earth is a big reality TV show, and it's the most successful entertainment program in the triad. Everything is so funny about Earth because it's so bad. It's very good, but I don't have time to explain. Anyway, so they go there. Casper gets a meeting with the TV executive, which is awesome. But then even older Leif shows up to turn himself in, but he gets a live broadcast to interview before they kill him. They even older Leif's robot arm detaches and guides Casper to turn off the lights, turn off the power to the building. There's a breakout. The X is super powerful and kills the bad guys. Then she rescues Bert. They get on a spaceship. We go back to Gloria and crew. They're fighting the Teds, and they're actually like, this. Everything sucks. We fought the Teds, but the whole like everything's collapsing. So they go to this planet that is like a tourism planet, but they don't grow food there, and so they have no food because in protest they shut down their warp gate so they can get no food. And so they like kill the sacred animal of this planet. And she's like, now you can eat. Hooray. It's sad. It's cool. Then they go to the last episode. There's a final battle. They go to the Whim Chimes. The Midnight Burger appears there. So Casper and crew shows up there. And there's just a really long final battle. The Teds are there with the big spaceship. Oh, I forgot to talk about Lothtrax, Space Pirate. They're also there. They're shooting the pirates, and the Teds are pew, 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 pew. And then Lothtrax shows up and is like, give me the Ted Slayer. I didn't even talk about the Ted Slayer. And then there's laugh tracks, and then eventually even older Leif. Spoilers if you don't spoilers if you were interested. Cut. Even older Leif flies into the wind chimes and kills it. And then the planet burger is free again. Season 3. There's a woman? What? That's how every single opener to season 3 starts, and it's the worst thing. There's a woman. She shows up. She's from space. And then the planet burger money times shows up in a different place. And they're like, there's zombies here? What? And then they kill John Wilkes Booth. And the woman goes around space, and this Mrs. Luxembourg also has diamonds, but the crazy lady can travel through time and dimension, but also is like time itself in a way, but is like destroying everything. She's causing chaos wherever she goes. Like she's ripping the universe apart and causing these like realities in the world. But she's doing this to save the place that she came from, but she can't even get back there no matter how hard she tries because it's so dark. She doesn't know how to get back because it's so dark. But then, like, whatever, at the end of the season, for some reason, we go back and explain her backstory in Jerusalem with Tarik of York in the 12th century, and that's not that interesting. And then we have there's the one lady who worked at the mall security but is now a rich woman. And she's like, actually, I figured it out about the red-haired lady. Oh, they get stuck in eternal brunch. They get out though. They're very good. And so then they go to the end. The end of the season lasts long. They go 2 more episodes longer, and it's not necessary and not good. They have a final showdown with this lady in which not really much. The X comes back, and they have a big laser battle in a reality where solar flares hit the Earth, and there's also alternate versions of everybody. And then they have the battle, but then they go back to where the time lady has been hanging out in this place in Montana in a hotel for a little bit between missions. And so they go to there, and she's actually freaking out. She's losing control of her powers, so she's making the hotel man's mom and dad appear have an argument in a car, and then go into the hotel like 1,000 times over, and it's going to destroy reality because it's exponential. It's going to credit out the rest of Resistance. And so they stop it. They're like, don't do that. And then she goes into Midnight Burger, and her powers get gone, and that's good. And then Chuck tries. Oh, you don't know about Chuck. We forgot to talk about Chuck. Did we skip over Chuck? How did we skip over Chuck? Oh, that's in season 2. They meet Chuck. Oh, they also get to meet Effie and Zebulon for real life. And so anyway, so Chuck tries to kill the space lady, but he doesn't succeed. And they're like, "What the freaking heck, Chuck?" And they jump away. And then they go to where she's from, which is actually a generation ship. After it turns out she destroyed her whole planet, which was Earth, and she lived in the generation ship, but the generation ship had been lost, and they're like, there's no stars, but it's just because they got lost in the nebula, and they're all stupid now. And so they just spend like almost 2 hours on this ship where like Leif fixes the problem in like 15 minutes, but he spends most of the episode going like, how am I gonna fix this problem? Oh. And then they meet a Scottish guy, and like Gloria gets the hots for him, and they talk about spores, and then they get out. And then there's a tie-in with the spin-off series Young Leif. And that's season 3. I don't like season 3. Season 2 is good. Listen to that.
What?
I'm sorry. I tried to be succinct. I really did my best.
That was awesome.
Yeah. In that form, I think it makes it all sound entertaining. Season 3 drags for a long time. The end of the season takes up half of the season. Like you think, like they figure everything out, and then they just like stuff keeps happening for no reason. The first episode does not have the Midnight Burger crew in it at all. It's like, I don't care.
What?
It doesn't have them in it.
What?
At all. Yeah, it's
in your character-driven podcast.
Yes, it's not like. It was so boring to listen to because there's so little there's intrigue, but I don't care. I really don't care who this other person is.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's That's a crazy creative person thing to do.
It is. Season 2 is awesome. Once you start going on season 2, once Gloria declares war, you just want to keep going. It's really fun.
Awesome.
Season 3 is whatever. Season 4
I'll
haven't
listen
done.
to it.
Okay, listener, if you stayed this long, God bless you.
Bless ya. It's gonna be a long one. This could be 2 episodes.
Impossible. On our final thoughts.
Final thoughts on Midnight Burger. I had this question.
Yeah.
When they say, because they say from the beginning and they say repeatedly that Midnight Burger opens at 6.
Yeah.
Do you think that's 6 a.m. or p.m.?
I believe it is p.m.
That's also what I thought.
But diners to me are kind of a morning endeavor.
Yeah, but it's got midnight in the title.
Well, they open at 6, and then they go assumedly till 6 a.m. I believe they go all night. Yeah, they open at 6 p.m., I believe.
Yeah, that was also my thought initially, but then I was like, I guess they could be saying a.m. and be having normal diner times.
Yeah.
So I was like, personality test. Which do you assume Midnight Burger opens at a.m. or p.m.?
Take this BuzzFeed quiz to see if you're an a.m. or a p.m. kind of Midnight Burger river.
I didn't like how you said that.
No,
I didn't like it.
Yeah, Midnight Burger, good pod.
Good pod.
I would, if I could cut it, I would take the middle episodes of season 1 and then season 2. I think those are
interesting. I'd take the inverse of season 1.
Really? Either side?
Yep.
I love the adventure so much.
I'm glad you do.
Yeah, I think if it was just those things, I think it would be like a 4.5 pod for me.
Wow.
4.5 burgers.
4.5 burgers.
Out of 5 burgers. Otherwise, it's like a 3.5.
I think I'd give it like a 4.
Yeah.
4 pod out of cast, whatever.
That's very good.
From listening to season 1. And I will listen to the rest. So that's really the true metric.
Yeah. Does it go up or down?
That we've agreed. The real measure of success of a podcast is if we start listening to it and go, I'll keep listening to this.
Yes. And listener, if you've listened to all of this and you could stomach this podcast, I think you'll like Midnight Burger.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
hey, Honor.
Yeah.
Do you want to go get a burger?
Let's go get a burger.
Burger time!
Burger time!